Manchester United 2, Rangers 1. And it was
nearly very funny.
The Battle of Britain. Do you know what I mean?
I don't like the Battle of Britain.
I don't like it as well because, firstly, it was very much Britain against someone else in the Battle of Britain.
Yeah, it was also like almost 80 years ago.
It was. And also, Man United v Rangers, it feels like, the city of, I don't know, Bradford against the city of Portsmouth. It's the Battle of Britain. It's not really.
Leave Portsmouth out of this.
Yeah.
Also,
I thought I'd go for a southern one and not just a northern one, otherwise we might get some.
Yeah, fair enough. None of the managers are British. Neither of the managers are British.
Right. None of the game happened in the sky.
No, that's also true.
Actually, yeah.
Exactly.
Nothing was powered by aviation fuel.
As we saw last night, there was absolutely no bravery involved.
But was there a dogfight between Jack Butland and Bruno Fernandes?
There was a dogfight between Ruben Amorim and himself. I fucking hate it here.
Yeah. Can you imagine what it must feel like just thinking, I could still be in Lisbon? Do you know what I mean?
Well, to be fair, the other day it was pissing it down Lisbon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was, much nicer here.
He's reminding me of Manchester. It was. The weather was biblical in Lisbon the other day for the Benfica game.
We've got a storm on this island this weekend.
We've got a storm on this island every weekend. Yeah, well, that's how it goes, isn't it?
That's just the Premier League for you, Peter.
You carry on. I'm going to look up how many storms there have been this year, because there's loads.
The editor of the Wrestle Me videos and the Bron Japan and stuff, he is just radio silence for a couple of days because his electricity's going to be out, his broadband's going to be down.
Oh, dear.
I'm worried about poor Michael. Back.
Well, we hope.
That goes out to you in Ireland.
They're being hit the hardest at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been absolutely pummeled.
Different island, of course.
So we've had 5 named storms.
You always get a comment, that's all.
From you.
From you! From you.
No, I'm saying
don't look at me like that.
We always get a comment if we don't.
We've had the Battle of Britain and now Ireland. What's
you think
next,
it's important
Marcus?
to clarify where Ireland is and where particular districts of London are. It's not necessary. It's that people can do their own fucking research.
Get on your map for crying out loud.
I'm not meeting them 3/4 of the way there. They've chosen to listen to this.
Right.
Anyway, 5 named storms so far since November.
Thank you.
This winter.
Climate change.
Ashley, Bert, Connell, Dara, and now the one I can't pronounce.
I'm on the Thames, and it's bloody whipping up there.
Yeah,
I had to put on some white noise at 3:30 in the morning for crying out loud.
My goodness, I tell you, it's a lot of storms for the United Kingdom of Great Britain, Northern Ireland, and the island of and Republic of Ireland as well.
Yeah.
My goodness, it's insane, and all the London boroughs, of course, which I'm going to name right now.
Have you got me in front of you?
I will do in just a second.
Can Bruno Fernandes keep doing this? Because it was a kind of a thin Rangers team that with a lot of changes.
Oh yeah,
they should have been. They had a lot of chances, and they should have put them away.
It would have been funny for the whole football community outside of that part of Salford if Rangers had won. Let's be fair.
It just seems a real shame
there's a particular community that wouldn't have liked it.
Oh yeah, okay.
But I hear your point, Luke Moore. I don't think Rangers were in danger of winning it, but of course they were close to getting a point. Dessa's goal was fantastic, Jim Campbell.
I mean, Harry Maguire just switched off a little bit, didn't he?
It was poor from Maguire.
He gave him the opportunity, but it was a brilliant, first-time snatched finish. Really, really
great touch and finish.
Yeah.
Beautiful left-footed finish. And this kind of mistake that you don't, if you're Harry Maguire, you don't want to be seen to be making because it's the kind of mistake that people will then go, if you can't do that, then what can you do?
Because he didn't put his header away.
No, exactly.
Yeah, and particularly now as well, where he's actually having a sort of slight renaissance, as much as you can have a renaissance.
I don't think
I think that's too strong a word.
Yeah, all right. Resurgence, Jim.
Slight resurgence.
He's wiped a bit of poo off him.
Yeah.
He's wiped a bit of a poo off his leg.
Don't go too far.
Still smell it. You can still smell it.
Don't go too far. I will have to defend him.
He started to clear up his reputation then.
He's out of the sewer, but the stink's still on him.
Right, yeah. Now he's kind of put his foot back in the sewer a bit with that.
Yeah.
So he's taken his skid-marked pants off. And he's not quite thrown them, but what he's done, he's not washed them, but he's thrown them in the washing machine rather than leaving them on the floor.
Yes, yeah. He's chiselled off, he stopped chiselling off his fingers. Although it's hard to put the fingers back on at this point. They've not been kept in ice.
Yeah.
It's a job Aaron could just do without, really.
Yeah.
But they won the game, though, didn't they? They won the game.
Did
so they actually did. They had a lot of chances, as you say, Pete. And this wasn't. It's tempting to look at how it nearly played out, isn't it? And think, this Man United being sort of listless and ridiculous again. But it wasn't that.
They're unbeaten in this competition as well, which is rare at this point in the season.
Only them, Lazio and Galatasaray, Peter, are the undefeated teams in the Europa League this season. Marcus, I'm sure you'd agree.
It's not a matter of agreeing or not.
Back me up, though, anyway.
Well, the table backs you up, which is more than I can ever do.
No, I respect your opinion more.
Okay. But Man United, they're fourth in there. They are. They're on course, very much so.
So this is an interesting position, isn't it? Because we're now at a crossroads here. You've made that point now, which is absolutely spot on. Man United are fourth in the Europa League. Now, we, as broadcasters here, have a decision to make whether we think that makes Manchester United good or the Europa League totally fucking pointless.
Right.
Could be a bit of both.
Well, I mean, Pete said can they still keep relying on Bruno Fernandes? The one thing they can't keep relying on is the opposition goalkeeper punching the ball into their net. Which is a shame for Jack Butland, former Man United keeper, of course, because he had a good game and he went on to make some good saves. But that
felt like the Jack Butland piece of cardboard. You were just removing packet of peanut after packet of peanut, and you're going to see his boobies eventually. So at the end, you're going to run out of peanuts. And Butland punched it in his own net.
Behind the bar?
I don't remember.
So behind the bar in the 90s, really, and prior to that.
Were you not drinking in pubs in the 70s, Marcus?
No. So I'm going to tell you what it's all about.
It's not the photo of the Queen, Mum, was it?
No,
that would be disrespectful.
That'd be a different part of the bar.
Okay.
Cardboard kind of sheath. Holding up, say, 16 to 20 packets of peanuts.
Yes.
Behind the packets of peanuts, the product itself, or there's a lady with her top off. And the more people buy peanuts, the more chance you've got of seeing a pair of tits.
Yeah.
And that is something that happened in this country in the 90s.
Yesterday.
And what I would say is Jack Button's got to be very, very careful, because if he carries on with that kind of stuff against Man United,
there'll be a picture of him in front of peanuts. Or behind
he may well lose his chance to be inducted into their Hall of Fame. Having played 0 minutes for them as well.
I mean, he's hit that with his thumb knuckle, hasn't he? You forget that's even there.
It was a shame for Butland, because otherwise he may well have got man of the match.
Yeah,
he was had a good game, but that was a
he made some lovely saves.
He did make some lovely saves, yeah. But Manchester United, they won, and I mean, to be fair, I don't think there was any danger that Man United were going to lose the game.
This is Man United we're talking about.
Yeah, well, indeed, and that's the thing. 1-0 up. A fortunate goal. They were creating chances. They should have been 2 goals to the good. And then Maguire makes that mistake. And you think, bloody hell, this is the problem for them. They have to be more clinical in front of goal. And obviously, Fernandes saves them. Amorim spoke about it being a big victory or an important victory. And you're right, these things happen. But to kind of bundle their way through this tournament, I'm not sure that they need more.
Should we be being fairer to them, though, given that they are the worst team in the history of Man United?
Maybe.
All right. Yeah. Garnacho was good, and that will see him sold.
Well, so I'm pleased you brought up Garnacho. Because
he's out of there. 70 million, thank you very much. See you later.
Because I watch a lot of football, probably more football than I want to watch, right? And a lot more of it than I want to watch is Man United.
Yeah.
And I have seen Garnacho overall in this whole period of United being a joke, basically, be one of the outfield players, given his age, given his experience, given the position he plays in, being someone that can actually hold their heads high with a bit of credit. Right?
Yeah.
I think it's. I don't know what the Man United fan reaction is to this potential transfer. I'd be absolutely raging if I was a Man United fan
absolutely,
about this.
yeah.
Because it's not like Anthony, it's not like Rashford who's got off-field problems and there's things going on. It's not like a player that's come in for big money who's not really worth anything. He's a really, really talented young player who's acquitted himself well for his age. He's got so much potential.
His age is really important in this as well, because he's 20, isn't he? He feels a lot
he's still
older
20,
than that,
yeah.
because it feels like he's been around for a lot longer than he actually has. But I think part of the reason that they're having to look at this is because they're quite close to the PSR limits. And a big part of that is essentially the size of what Anthony costs every year. So this is obviously that's not the entire reason for it, but it's part of it, and it's kind of repeatedly coming back to bite them now.
He's 20 and he's played almost 120 games for United.
Wild.
Yeah, and I would, Marcus. I mean, surely you think the idea of Garnacho going to Chelsea from Man United would be it's outrageous if you're a Man United fan.
Yeah,
it's even more annoying because, as Jim just says there, the reason why they are thinking of selling him is pretty much because they signed Anthony for that money.
And can I add?
That is, I mean, not just one or two other players.
Who's left then? Bruno.
Who's left? Kobe Mainoo is also another one. They're looking at these players and thinking it's close to kind of just pure profit for them.
Yeah, well,
I mean, Garnacho is.
It will be. Pure
it
profit.
would be with Garnacho, yes, exactly, and with Mainoo, and flying or sailing so close to the wind with PSR, they are genuinely very, very worried about it. Which I'm sure is music to Sir Jim's ears, so he can do all the cuts he wants.
Yeah.
But that is the reality of it. If you don't want the points deductions, you don't want the fines, you don't want all that kind of stuff. You want to play within the rules. You have to do something, and because of these ridiculous transfers that they have made, it is now really biting them on the arse.
The Anthony transfer is an absolute black hole apotheosis of just terrible
It's
recruitment.
one of the worst transfers ever. Do you know part of the reason that they spent so much money was because of Edwin van der Sar, who was essentially in charge at Ajax at the time, kept going, no, we want more, no, we want more. And they kept coming back. It's like,
Man United
he's a club legend.
Could I also throw in there another dimension to this Anthony thing? If you're a Man United fan and you're looking at Anthony playing for you, and then you go and look what Anthony Elanga's doing at Forest, who you let go, who's helping Forest deliver one of the best seasons they've had in years, who's also a homegrown player for Man United, and you just let him go. The decision making is woeful.
But again, that's down to PSR though, isn't it? They kind of essentially had to sell somebody to bank it as pure profit. And it's a shame this, isn't it, that we're in this situation where you've got the idea of Kobbie Mainoo in particular having to be considered up for sale for Man United to fit this criteria. It's just so soulless, isn't
Goes
it? None
against
of us
like
see
Alex
that.
Ferguson's kind of like plan of these kind of bringing young players through and blooding them in. I mean, Anthony obviously spending the rest of the season abroad would. And he's got like a guarantee, hasn't he, that he has to play a certain amount of games, as most loans have kind of in anywhere. They're just hoping for him to have a really, really good, weirdly good set of performances, just so they can just get a bit of money back from him at the end of the season, really. Otherwise, he would have gone for a paltry amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, Real Betis would have to pay a penalty fee if he doesn't play a certain amount of games. That is...
That feels unethical. Weirdly,
I would also sort of think to myself, do we want this player? if you have to play him in a certain amount of games.
Will we get?
Hang on a minute here. What's going on?
Points penalty if we do play him.
This is Danielson all over again.
Yeah, great reference.
Thank you.
Ben McAleer, who scored and also writes for The Guardian, did a really interesting, I don't mean this in a pejorative way, but he's a nerd. Did like a nerdy deep dive into the stats. Right. And some of the on Anthony, and some of the coverage and the writing about him is incredible. Like, I'll just read a quick passage for you. He says, under the section Anthony's limitations, he just writes, he does not score goals, set up goals, beat players, or contribute to build up play. Statistically, doesn't do any of those things.
And he is a forward player, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's completed 38% of his dribbles.
Oh, Anthony.
It's like it's astonishingly bad.
I mean, Anthony,
you couldn't have seen this happening. He's only 24.
He
Good
needs
God.
a move, for crying out loud, and that load move. Like Manchester United will be hoping that he can refresh himself. And
do you know what? I actually think it's worse than that, Marcus. I think they're just probably saying he's such a lightning rod for everything that's going wrong. He just needs to be out the club.
Yeah.
And if we sit him in the reserves or sit him on the bench, it's just still going to be there.
You still get the journalist asking questions.
Exactly.
Why is this guy cost the fortune?
He's on loan. Get him out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And I don't. Obviously, we should say this a little bit more, I suppose, than we do. It's nothing personal. I'm not taking the piss out of the guy as a person. Just saying his contribution has been woeful, and it makes sense for him to go. But I think it's for the out of sight, out of mind reason.
Well, indeed, but also as well. I mean, a player can, a high profile or a talented player can come to a different league and especially a young player, and not play very, very well. Yeah. You're more laughing at the absurdity of the fee and how Manchester United went after him so much.
Well, they
to
just
the point
got taken for a ride, didn't
completely
they?
by one of their former players.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember they tried to sign Ander Herrera once, and they thought they had, and it turned out the people negotiating the transfer were con men. It's like not quite as bad as that.
No, Edwin van der Sar's not a con man, although
Well, have you seen the Anthony transfer?
It may well feel like that, of course. No wonder Amorim's so angry. Did you hear he reportedly smashed a TV in the Old Trafford dressing room while bollocking the team after their 3-1 loss to Brighton last Sunday? What were they watching?
The funniest thing about this is the fact
Just turned on Happy Days.
Snowman.
Fucking, if you're saving like me in the night garden for the 4th millionth time.
Yeah, same. It's funny to me that we even know about this because it just shows the leak is still there.
Yeah.
It literally happened in the dressing room.
Also, Pete, probably should come in on this. It's not as impressive these days smashing a telly as it would be say in the 80s, is it?
Yeah, the implosion of a cathode ray tube is way more satisfying. That dust smashing out of it. Oh, wonderful.
They're much bulkier, they're much more expensive, so it's more of a statement.
I've cut my hand on some polarising film. Not going to happen, is it, Ruben?
If you smashed a TV now, obviously flat screen, blah, 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 you wouldn't get the sort of...
Well, it's not glass, is it?
It's not the explode. You know, when a TV...
It's just going to go
Yeah, it wouldn't get the boom. It was a boom sound.
When you see
wasn't it?
sort of toxic men punching their telly after an NFL loss or something, you sort of you'll get like green lines down the screen, maybe a white patch where the impact, and the whole screen will just sort of go.
But what are the toxins
you see them
released?
You see them on sale for like Facebook Marketplace for like, would you want to buy my telly for like £100? It's a bit smashed, but you can see most of the screen. I'm like,
tell you what,
nobody wants this.
I reckon Sir Jim Ratcliffe's trying to sell that telly.
No,
This is the TV Amarin
insurance.
I reckon Ruben Amorim will get a formal warning as an employee because now Jim Radcliffe's going to have to buy another telly. Or I wouldn't be surprised, actually, their season goes even more downhill because they haven't got a TV to watch any tape on now because Radcliffe won't replace it.
Get one of these cello ones. It's the only television made and assembled in the UK. They're very cheap on Amazon.
Good recommendation from Pete.
Have a bit of that. Hey, what?
Pete,
don't punch it. Have a bit of that.
It's actually flickering when you do that.
Look what happens.
Yeah, stop doing it.
No. Never.
Oi, one more.
The Ruben Amorim of the Ramble.
Chuck it out the windy. Yeah. Well, with regards to the cuts and Sir Jim Ratcliffe getting his thrills over that.
Getting his cheapies.
Cheapies.
Yeah. Literally cheap, isn't it? It's cheapies. It makes sense.
I should have gone with it. The club are continuing to cut the salaries of legends in ambassadorial roles. Brian Robson, Dennis Irwin and Andy Cole have had their income cut for matchday ambassadorial duties. Which
Robson can't afford a full suit.
Bless him. Saving up for the trousers.
Bless him.
Come on, boss, I'm already still wearing my Middlesbrough shorts.
Oh dear. I have seen Dennis Irwin and Andy Cole, of course, in their ambassadorial roles. Dennis Irwin earned his money that day.
Did he? Yeah, I bet. Yeah, because some of them aren't very good.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Hence, I only named Dennis Irwin.
It's a confusing role because essentially you're just being asked to be yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're Ray Parlour, that's fine.
Great.
Right? If you're
Dennis Irwin,
if you're Andy Cole, who used to get mocked pretty much every week on Fantasy Football League for looking like he'd been switched off at the mains every time he stopped answering a question.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a great way use of your money. But
I think you should walk around in a leather jacket and carrying an AK-47 like he did in that photo shoot for Pepsi.
Good idea.
That would be that would be say if he walked into the office like that and went, "Come on, then, Jim.
Yeah.
You're going to cut my wages when I'm handling a dangerous weapon."
That's a replica. That's what I'd be saying straight away. Jim Ratcliffe knows a replica when he sees one.
He probably does.
Yeah.
He famously makes replica Range Rovers.
He does.
He fell out with his boating lot as well.
Right.
He fell out with his boating team.
Why?
He's got a famous 2012 boating man, and he wanted to win this
Ben
famous
Ainsley.
boat. Yes,
Ben Ainsley.
fell out with Ben Ainsley, and he wanted to win
America's Cup.
Win the America's
I have
Cup.
to translate. Sorry,
Thanks.
you carry on. I'll translate.
Man, boat, sea.
Yeah.
Let's all do some
Marcus,
fishing.
Rich men have fallen
Marcus,
out.
he fell out with his boating man.
Boating lot.
Why did he fall out with his boating man?
Oh, something
Were
about
they
a
not strapped
sail,
in the boat?
probably.
It was windy, Jim. They both fell over. It was shocking.
Yeah.
He smashed the telly on the
Although,
boat.
There's a lot of
also,
storms.
apparently Anthony fell out of the boat as well.
Did he?
Didn't hit the water.
It was on the shore. Right. What else? Amad Diallo, he was seen in a training jacket with a Man United badge printed the wrong way up.
Yes, bit of DHgate. Love it.
It was
Love
it was revealed this week that the Glazers stopped Manchester United from visiting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which the Glazers also own, while on a pre-season tour of the US, because there might have been a mutiny when they saw how nice their facilities were. I mean,
It's worth
such a
remembering
show.
that, like, the
Is that a
difference.
water machine?
it's that flat screen telly.
This is carpeted.
Ruben Amorim's punching the telly. I know he wasn't there.
Ruben's going to have like prison tech, like see-through, like computers and stuff.
Just
so he
Bruno
just remembers
Fernandes like looking askance at like a air conditioning remote. Going, what?
what is this?
What?
It's worth remembering though that like then like the Premier League income wise for across all of the teams like globally they only bring in like about the same as the NHL in America, which is incredible.
Wow.
Like really, the NFL's like twice. But I know they've got more teams.
I was saying to, I think it might be Marcus on the show not that long ago that might be the mailbag that of the top 20 most valuable sports teams in the world, something like 17 or 18 of them are American sports teams.
Yeah, it's wild,
I think Real Madrid and Ferrari F1 teams squeeze in there. That's it.
Right.
So it's a different level, a totally different
Old man
level.
baseball is higher,
and that's partly why American owners have started to buy Premier League teams because they see the potential and think they're just massively undervalued.
Yeah.
You know, like the Dallas Cowboys, I think it is, it's worth like $8 billion or something. And you can go and get Man United for less than that.
Yeah.
You know,
You could have just a snip of the price.
exactly,
Yeah.
which is what he did, and they've been snipping prices ever since, like a fucking branch of Aldi Centre Aisle in there.
Indeed, yeah. Well, the bad news for Manchester United, if they we're hoping for some good news. I'm afraid not. They go to Fulham on Sunday night.
Sunday night as well. So I think the stakes are going to be high.
Do you know what? Vish said to me, "Oh, can I go with you?" And I was like, "What are you doing, man? Don't put yourself through that."
Sorry, Vish. What, into the lion's den? Into the domestic house cat's den?
One of those lions with a monocle that you see on promotional.
I did say
Willie Fogg from Around the World.
Willie Fogg, yes, that lion.
I said, "Well, good reference." Yeah, I said,
Fogg, I'm the one who made the beat.
What's
That's how
that?
he talks. That's how he talks.
No,
That's
it wasn't.
In the music, that's how he talks.
Yeah, Marcus, don't
He
go
had a Cornish accent.
don't go to bat on this, Marcus.
I won't.
Yeah.
Coming up after this, Spurs win in Germany.
De Bruyne has the short option. He does have a splendid set of cards. I've got to admit, though, Jack Grealish down below in front of us.
Welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody. Nice mention for Jack Grealish there. Back to the Europa League. Hoffenheim 2, Spurs 3. Big win for Spurs, Pete Donaldson. Big win.
It was, yes. I think if they get through this, they could potentially rejig their squad a little bit with the Europa League rules, because they'll need to, because they are...
More teenagers.
Well, the bench was like a lolly stick.
Yes.
A congealed bit of chewing gum. Like, it was a very, very thin squad. And... yeah, but Angela just complained about the amount of
you can't really be against a football player called William Lancashire.
You can't.
No, he sounds like, as I said to you guys before, he sounds like the mystery knight in a medieval tournament.
Yeah, or someone who claimed to have written a Shakespeare play.
Yeah.
So I wrote Hamlet, actually.
Yeah.
Did you, Lancashire?
Yeah, looking
Did
at him, I
you?
don't think he did. No, I don't think he did.
I look, it was a good win for Spurs. Son Heung-min, of course, has had a bit of criticism recently. It was important for him to get a couple of goals.
First half, they looked really good, and then they just really tired.
They started quickly, didn't they? Yeah.
They did start quickly. I mean, bear in mind they had, 5 teenagers on the pitch at the end of the game. Ange keeps going on about his teenagers. I think to spin it into a positive. I'd like to see him, a bit of My Chemical Romance before the game. They're gonna clean up your looks. Get a bit of that going. Do you know what I mean? Scare them with the teenagers.
What, teenagers are going to kick the living shit out of you?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right,
Exactly.
fair. I like it.
I think,
yeah.
well, you think there should be like some sort of terrifying street gang hanging out on a corner?
I wouldn't go that far.
I'll
Jim.
give them all emo haircuts and an eyeliner.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like that.
There's no way
Goth squad of Spurs.
Spurs can't be hanging around on the street, but one of them will fall down the curb and break their ankle. They're going to get hit by a car. What's actually convenient for them is they come up against the Hoffenheim team who are in absolutely terrible form.
Well, Kramaric himself said, our season is one big shit. So it was a perfect game for Spurs. But it was important that they won, obviously.
Yeah, you've got to stop the rot in a situation like this, right?
You do. And I understand they were hanging on at the end, but they go away from home and they win. And if Hoffenheim,
goal for Maddison as well, by the way. He's been completely anonymous in recent weeks.
Lovely goal and a much better performance. But if they're pegged back, and it's a 3-3 draw, questions are asked about blah 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 blah. But they held on, and these are the moments in football that can just change a little bit. I mean, Archie Gray and Lucas Bergveld collapsed on the pitch at full time, and Postecoglou said these players are exhausted, mate. Now, a lot of it has been made of their injuries and whatnot. I still think Ange could be getting a better tune out of what he's got, but the injury list is crazy, obviously. But it's an important win, and Spurs are still alive in the Cups, and they really do have a chance of things.
Keeping Ange in the job, isn't it, really, this?
Yeah.
I suspect that what's maybe his predecessors and what's happened before is also keeping him in the job, because so many Spurs fans say, what's the point in sacking him?
Yeah.
And it's not just the injuries, it's obviously people having to go at Levy and how they've
If he had a
done
better
business as
CV,
well.
I imagine there'd be fewer people not saying that effectively, because if Conte was still in the job, they'd be like, what's the point in sacking Conte? But with Ange, he's got quite a thin CV compared to them.
It feels to me like a situation where there's a few things happening that are all true at the same time. Right?
Yeah.
Like yesterday, they had, I think, something like 13 players unavailable from a combination of injuries and ineligibility, right? So Kinski couldn't play, Reguilon couldn't play, Jed Spence, I think, couldn't play. And they've got all these injuries as well. And then they've got players coming back from injury who perhaps can't play full 90s and stuff. And that's true, right? Full stop, next sentence. The problems they've got predate the injuries they've had, though.
Yes.
And the form they've had.
It's exacerbated it, but it's...
Yeah, the form in the Premier League has been appallingly
Piss
bad.
poor.
I actually think, I think I said on Wednesday or maybe last week, it's gone actually a little bit underrated how bad their form has been, because Ange has done a very good job, in my view, of leading the conversation to different areas about injuries, about the amount of football being played, about different refereeing decisions, about VAR. He's very, very good, Ange, in quite a... I won't say genial, but he can be very prickly, of course, but he's very good at leading conversations in different areas away from the fact that they've been really poor. And they've never been in a position under him where they've been able to control games at all. And actually, you saw a bit of that last night. As you said, they were hanging on a bit, and it all seems to be a bit windsocky, a bit chaotic. But it also does show up the thing that Andy always talks about, the dominance and the financial power and the muscle of the Premier League in these types of competitions. They've been fortunate to come up against a Hoffenheim team who've been in no sort of form whatsoever. But they play Elfsberg next.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna go through pretty easily with flying colours because the opening stages of these competitions are pretty straightforward for the teams with that amount of financial might.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, a huge change to the Europa League this season is obviously the Champions League teams aren't dropping into it. So that, the level used to kind of rise up once you got into the knockout stages. That's not going to happen now. So it is a real chance for them and for Man United, really. And obviously, there'll be certain teams from other kind of big European leagues thinking the same. But it changes it a lot, doesn't it? I think actually it's probably going to get quite interesting as it gets deep in, because teams like that getting a European trophy almost never happened in the past, and it will now.
But I think the Europa League and the Conference League always is quite interesting towards the end.
Sure.
Let me throw something else out there.
I think it's more interesting without those teams dropping into it.
No, definitely, absolutely.
Of course.
And you're not going to get any argument from that from a Fulham fan either.
Correct.
But can I throw something else in there, which has actually been very clever by Ange, and something that I don't think he should get away with. He's always talking about injuries and unavailability like it's some kind of fickle hand of fate that he's had bestowed upon him. How are you fucking training those players?
Yeah.
Why is it still happening?
The hamstring injuries suggest that it's...
You're overseeing this.
Yeah.
You're overseeing the training, which apparently is very intense.
Well, stuff is sort of coming to light now, isn't it? That the way he kind of rags those players on and off the pitch is exactly the same. You look at the running stats and all the rest of it.
A bit of criticism for players coming back a bit too early as well.
Well, didn't they?
With Romero and Van de Ven both kind of coming back from injury, then getting injured again.
Yeah.
What was the guy's name? Jeff Scott, was it? Who was the head of science and sports science and medicine and stuff there? He'd been at the club for 20 years. And this summer he left.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
didn't know that.
There was reports, Jack Pitt-Brook in The Athletic writes a lot about this kind of stuff as one. There were reports suggesting that him and Ange had a massive bust-up about how to condition the players, especially when they come back and overloading the players and all. Now, the club have said, actually, there's a lot of restructuring going on, which there is. So he may well have been moved on, I don't know. But some sources say that they had that was one of the reasons why he left. And he'd worked with how many different coaches before that in the 20 years? All sorts of, Pochettino, different coach, to Conte, to, you name it.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. And usually in the first 6 months of Ange's time, if you look at the stats and whatnot, that's when the injuries occur, because the players aren't used to that overload. Whereas it's not letting up; it's getting worse,
Well,
it's a worry.
It's a perfect storm with a kind of increased amount of games that we're playing.
Also, it's a bit like when Arsenal were under Wenger; they used to get injuries all the time, and it was like, well, what's going on here?
It feels to me like as well, and
all of it can't be a coincidence.
I haven't got the stats in front of me, but it feels to me at least a handful of these Spurs injuries, they seem to come out breaking news during the week.
Yeah.
Collapsed, broke down training.
Right, yeah.
Suddenly unavailable. They're not all injuries that happen in games.
Yeah.
So, look, I mean, they got past Hoffenheim. The positives, as you mentioned, Marcus. Son has needed to make a contribution for a while now. He did so. Maddison the same. He's been an absolute passenger in recent weeks, Maddison. So, obviously it remains to be seen if they can go and do it in the Premier League. They've got Leicester at home. I mean, you're talking about changing managers and whether there's going to be any point doing it. I find it very, very hard to see a situation where Spurs lose at home to Leicester and Ange doesn't get some kind of comeuppance. I mean, realistically, can you get away with losing at home to Leicester after the form you've been in?
No.
And you've come off the back of a 3-2 kind of heavy going trip to Germany. So
I don't know. I think that again, it's that Carabao semi-final is. I think he'll get to that regardless of what happens.
I don't think he would get sacked if they lost to Leicester. I think he's good to the end of the season at least. And
do you know the thing is though?
They are 15th.
They're not.
I know they are.
They're not. Look, they've played against Everton recently. They've been beaten by them. David Moyes is going to get Everton going. You said that yourself. He is, and it's only.
Can McKenna get Ipswich going that much?
If Spurs lose at home to Leicester, they have to start thinking about this as a relegation fight. And they spent 400 million in the last 2 years.
It looks terrible on Levy, as we said on
terrible.
our show.
Absolutely.
In mid-season.
I don't think they're going to be relegated, but I think you've got to start talking about yourself in that conversation.
Well, as Pete said earlier, though, the Cups maybe keep them. Although you could spin it round and say, well, actually, while they're still alive in the Cups, then get rid of him and get someone else in who's maybe going to actually have a proper tilt.
While the transfer window's still open.
Ooh. Yeah. But I think he'll be there until the summer. That would be my guess. Because I don't think they're going to lose to Leicester, because as the Leicester fans were chanting last week to Van Nistelrooy, you don't know what you're doing and so on. So it would be... to me, it's unthinkable that Leicester
I
could go
just
there
don't think
and
the Premier League is going to have a relegation fight this season. The three are the three. Goodbye.
No, it is because Wolves.
We're come to Wolves in a bit. We'll come to Wolves in a bit. Yes. Elsewhere in Europe last night, did you see that Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce got a decent result? You have to say, against Lyon. Lyon are fifth, looking very good for automatic qualification in the Europa League, whereas Fenerbahce are down in 23rd, so they're just in that top 24.
That sounds bad, doesn't it?
Yeah.
23rd sounds bad.
But I mean, Fenerbahce not really pulling up trees under Mourinho. But did you see that when the coaches and teams walked out of a kickoff, Jose had to ask a member of the Lyon staff, "Who's Pierre Sage? Who's the manager?"
Doesn't know Sage and Onions.
He didn't know what he looked like, the manager of Lyon.
He looks like David O'Leary. So just look for someone who looks like David O'Leary. It's him.
He didn't have the time to find out who he was.
Right.
I'm sure I've pronounced his name wrong, but I thought it would invite some piss poor jokes.
Yeah,
and we got there.
It must be Pierre Sage. It must be.
Must be.
But
interesting career he's had.
He came out of the academy, didn't
But he never played pro.
Right.
And
he was the academy coach at Lyon, though,
and worked all his way up. Yeah. Now look at him.
Yeah.
It's easy to learn this stuff, isn't it?
Being mugged off by Mourinho. Yeah.
Why didn't we do it?
Let's start now.
I'll tell you what, you could genuinely claim that you're at the top table of football management if you're being mugged off by Jose Mourinho.
Yeah,
they are.
It's a badge of honour in a way. Actually.
Definitely.
Yeah. As I say, one's on the way up, one's on the way down.
I would also say to Jose, if you watch the footage of it, he's actually very warm to him, and he's not like he's trying to.
Who's this?
Gamesmanship him. I just think he genuinely doesn't know who he is.
It feels like this is a chance for Jose to try a soft launch of a new mind game. Maybe I'll use this on someone bigger later.
But Jim, if he had done that to Wenger halfway through a Premier League season, that would be quite slightly different.
Yeah, that would have been.
Well, Wenger always refused to see things, so
did.
maybe I can't see you. Exactly. I can't see you.
But John Cena.
Like John Cena.
Just like John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
Right, everybody, let's go back to the Premier League. Manchester City host Chelsea on Saturday, tomorrow at 5:30. Big one. It's a big one in the Premier League. One can forget that Man City are still very much in the runnings for the Champions League spots. This is the Premier League.
Fifth versus fourth, isn't it? And it's a real test of Chelsea's upturn, actually, in form. Because obviously they've had a little blip lately, but it's hard to call this one, isn't it? Because
I don't think it's hard to call. I think Chelsea will win it.
You think? The thing with Chelsea, it feels like they're playing with absolutely nothing to lose, which is quite spectacular given what they've spent and all the kind of the comings and goings there. Whereas City are in the middle of this existential crisis, so this promises to be brilliant.
I need to stress, though, if anybody from Chelsea is listening, it is utterly crucial that you go behind in this game, because that's the way to guarantee you'll get something out of it.
I just feel like the way that Man City have been playing, the way you can talk about they've had a slight resurgence in form, which they have, but if you look at the teams they've had a resurgence in form against, it's been West Ham when the writing was on the wall for Lopetegui. It's been Leicester, who've been woeful. It's been Salford, who aren't at their level. Ipswich and it's those types of teams. I found, as I said to Pete on Reacts at the time, I found the lack of response to when PSG started really cooking. And by the way, PSG are probably a different proposition to what they were a couple of years ago, but they are a team who have clearly shown themselves to be, as part of their identity, just a little bit soft-centred.
Yes.
And there's no way if you're a top team, there's no way you should be discouraged when PSG start doing stuff, because they can be got at. They always can be. And Man City, it was almost like can't respond, won't respond, and they got steamrollers. They're actually very lucky to get out of that with a 4-2.
Yes.
So to me,
it seems extraordinary to say.
It feels to me that if Chelsea have shown that they can do the business, you've got things like intangible things like Palmer against his old
club. Do you think Palmer will fancy it?
Exactly right. I actually think this is a Chelsea win for me. I honestly think it is.
I would be inclined to say that as well, because as you guys were talking on Reacts, like Man City,
Foden in particular was a real shame for me as an Englandman yourself.
Well, of course.
I just think though this is such a test for Man City now, and surely they're going to show more than we've seen from them.
Enough.
They can't.
They don't do it. They've had tests.
This is annoying me so much. There's so many pundits out there scratching their heads going, well, we've not seen it. It's done. It's done. I don't get why people are not understanding this. Under Pep Guardiola, right, is one of the best managers in the history of the game.
Sure.
Right? So let me, not having a go at the guy. What he's done with this Man City team, I understand the investigation and we'll see in March and blah, blah, blah. But let's put that to one side. What he's done with his Man City team is unprecedented. His Man City team at their pomp, one of the best club sides we've seen. His Barcelona side back in the day. Right, so the praise is there. We could spend the rest of the show, which we won't, of course, because that would be silly, talking about how good this guy is. And his sustained success at Manchester City has been phenomenal. It's been stunningly good.
Yeah.
He might be disappointed, a touch disappointed that there's only one Champions League win in there, but it's a cup competition, blah 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 blah, etc. Ferguson was disappointed that he only won 2 of Champions Leagues,
and they're still in it. Let's not forget.
They are still in it.
But make your point, because that's the preamble.
Indeed, sorry about that, but you have to do that because people think you've lost your mind. But Pep Guardiola at Man City, there's a chance next season that if he's still there, they rebuild in the summer and they put on a better showing than what they've done. But it will never get back to what it is. And if honestly, if I was a Man City fan, as ridiculous as it sounds, I would think, I actually hope they part ways with Pep in the summer. Because I think his time at Man City, they've achieved everything, and now they're exhausted, it's crashed down, and it's a huge rebuild. And I think I would probably want the rebuild to go to a different manager.
Well, I think the rebuild started, isn't it? They've spent 120 million quid in this window already.
Indeed,
and they're probably
Jim.
going to bring some more players in.
Good news about the number 7, Marcus.
Good news about the walnut gear knob.
There we are, you see.
No, I like that.
Carl Walker's off. He's like, sod this is done.
Yeah.
You've been very early in your adopting of that.
But I'm amazed, though, Luke, that so many pundits are just watching it, scratching their head. But they're going to come back.
They've had shit periods
that.
before, though, haven't they?
Not
to this level, but they've had shit periods before, and then they've just for the run-in, they've absolutely toasted teams.
There's two reasons, but definitely their run-ins have been amazing. Like the second half of the season, traditionally under Guardiola, they've been incredible. This is not that, though. I don't think. I made that point before, and I don't actually subscribe to that point now. The two reasons why pundits are doing what they're doing is because people are quite traditionally slow to adapt to a new reality, because they get lazy about how they talk about stuff. And secondly, Man City are still easily good enough, because of the have and have-nots part of football these days, easily good enough to knock over Salford or knock even Ipswich and Leicester. It's not what we're talking about.
Don't be surprised if they beat Ipswich 6-0, because they've got quality players.
There's a difference between that and beating Chelsea.
Don't be surprised be slightly surprised, but not hugely surprised if they beat Chelsea and they put in a good performance. But the idea of then going, right, we're back.
Yeah. I don't know, though, but there is an element of surely of professional pride from a group of really, really
Did you see that against
players.
PSG?
Yeah, sure, of course. But this is what I mean. At some point, there's got to be a performance where they dig in and they're like, we can't have this anymore.
Of course, but this is what I mean.
Like
You're
roulette.
doing the thing that I'm saying.
I'm not doing the thing that you're saying.
You're saying at some point,
Marcus, I'm essentially reiterating the point that, like I say, these are really, really talented players,
right,
as I've established already. And I'm saying, when you get into the doldrums like this, we see it so often when teams are in situations where it's getting really, really bad. They dig in and they get a surprising result. And I think actually this is an ideal test for City, because Chelsea have had their little blip as well. They're at home. They're off the back of a really, really embarrassing run. I think actually this is a chance where maybe they're going to stand up and be counted a little bit.
Yeah, and they might well do. All right, coming up after this, we've got Bournemouth versus Nottingham Forest and a little Kevin Keegan story. Gentlemen, Bournemouth versus Nottingham Forest tomorrow, 3 p.m. is a lovely fixture. Jim Campbell, Forest are third, level on points with second place Arsenal. Bournemouth are 7 points behind them in seventh. Two of the most talked about teams and the most impressive teams this season in the Premier League, lock horns.
Yeah, and potentially an absolute thriller of a match, because we know how sort of fit and kind of direct Bournemouth are, and we know how, again, Forest are set up so perfectly for anyone to have a go at them and thrive so well with it, that you think that this has the, again, like lock up your Barnes, as we said the other day, this has the potential to be absolutely brilliant.
Also, Forest haven't beaten Bournemouth for 10 years.
Yeah, they're a bit of a bogey team, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's a great game. It's a game that at the start of the season, you'd be thinking,
whatever.
Yeah, now I'm thinking,
no wonder that's why it's on at 3 o'clock. Yeah.
Now I'm thinking, how am I going to watch this?
Yes.
I'll have to speak to Pete Donaldson after the show to find out. It's Saturday at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I mean, both love to counter-attack. So at some point, someone's got to go.
Someone's
haven't
got
they?
Well, maybe that'll be it. They'll just be in the centre circle for the whole game. Going,
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah,
So many outstanding players who are having outstanding individual seasons across both these teams.
Like career best seasons.
Yeah.
Clivert, Semenyo, Chris Wood, Gibbs White,
Ilanga,
Murillo, Milenkovic,
Matt Sells.
Elton Adoy.
Matt Sells. So many players. Kirkes for Bournemouth as
Give
well.
little Kepa a mention.
Kepa, he's
the
quietly
most
doing well.
expensive goalkeeper in the world, just killing it at Bournemouth.
Yeah, absolutely delighted
where we
that
are
Anthony
now.
went to Man United for that money.
Anthony should get down to Bournemouth, shouldn't he?
God,
Actually, no, Bournemouth.
come on,
Yeah.
they don't deserve
Ruin
that.
They
this.
don't deserve that.
It's very rarely you'll hear me defending a fellow South Coast team, but I don't think they deserve Anthony.
You don't dislike Bournemouth, do you?
Indifferent.
No,
Okay, fair
where are you
enough.
on Plymouth?
Yeah, indifferent.
No.
The Portsmouth fans are indifferent about every other team other than Southampton.
I see.
A bit of Palace,
Right.
bit of potentially a little bit of Millwall. That's it.
Really?
Right.
That'll happen. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this one, and I think the tactical battle between Iraola and Nuno is quite fascinating.
And interestingly enough, as well, just to kind of flip this all the way back to what we were talking about with Spurs earlier and availability. You know, you've got Nuno in situ at Forest, ex-Spurs manager, of course. He's somehow managed to. It's a little bit different. It's apples and oranges in a way because they're not playing as many games. But Forest, pretty close to having a clean bill of health. They've only got, I think, maybe one player injured.
I mean, it's the style of football that Nuno likes to play, and it's mad fit to think he was going to be Spurs, that he was chosen as Spurs manager. You know, it was never going to work out really.
But I'm just saying that he's.
But then you could say that about Mourinho and Conte as well, I suppose.
With admittedly fewer games, they are still clearly managing their resources better.
I don't think anybody could argue that. But
And don't argue it. Move on.
yeah, okay, fine.
Accept it.
Andoni Iraola has insisted that he's not thinking about European qualification. Now, of course, he's going to say that. But,
Do with the old Ranieri.
but my goodness, yeah. I mean, he can't say to himself,
Just want 40 points, don't they?
yeah, exactly.
Which they'll get if they beat Forest.
Well, they will.
Sorry,
Forest-
let me rephrase that. They'll get 3 points for that. They'll then be on 40
That's
points.
right,
They
that's
won't
right.
get 40 points and fly to the top of the table for beating Forest.
That would be quite something.
It would.
It would be. I think Arne Slot might be pissed off with that. But there we are. But Forest themselves, of course, have got 44 points, so they are staying up. So they'll be pleased with that. But I mean, it's incredible to think that Bournemouth could get Champions League football next season. I know there's a fair bit to go, and obviously there are a couple of teams above them in that. But that's really he's no fool. He can see the table as well. He's the bloody manager.
Yeah.
That has to be the sort of quiet goal this season.
Totally, because fall short of it and you're still in Europe. It's great. They've got nothing to lose, really, have they?
There's also a situation we're coming into now, which will become more and more important, which is the teams, say, probably down to Aston Villa, because Aston Villa have actually been quite good form recently, and they've found it tough managing all these different games. But the top 8 teams, you've got to start looking at which teams don't have any other games to play other than the Premier League. Chelsea, Forest, Bournemouth. It's going to matter. It's going to matter big time because the more load these players have got, the more injuries they find because of that. It's going to make a big difference. You could be in a situation where, it could be you're relying on, say, Newcastle, who of course themselves haven't got any other football either, to be reliable enough to get up into that top 5, because it could be a top 5 this season. But then you've got Chelsea and Man City are in no way reliable for the reasons we've already talked about.
Yeah.
You could have a top 5 go into the Champions League, including Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth.
And Fulham.
We're not including Fulham because they keep letting themselves down with silly results, as you well know.
Also, in terms of keeping hold of the players that have got them into this situation, they might be thinking, best way to do that is qualify for the Champions League.
Well, I mean, it is. Yeah, it would be a great shame if the likes of, say, Semenyo and maybe Clivert and Kirkes were not there to play, if indeed they do qualify. But anyway, we should probably stop this because Bournemouth fans will be saying, shut up! Stop jinxing it. But don't worry, remember, whatever we say has no impact on what actually will happen.
On that note, though, I like the idea that Forest are apparently. I'm not suggesting we get into a heavy chat about transfers now, but Forest have apparently reportedly bid for Johan Wissa. And the reason that's interesting, I think, is because they're behaving like they are a big club.
Yes, and that's the next step. You've got to do that.
Yeah,
That's what
absolutely.
you've got to do.
And this could be their only opportunity to do that. They're also linked with Matheus Cunha, regardless of whether they get those players or not.
Who isn't linked with Cunha?
It's a smart move, though, isn't it, to try and wedge yourself in there now.
And Wissa's a one who I know you don't want to drill down on it too much. We've got to move on, but Wissa to me, quality player. His numbers are good and so on. I'm surprised that there's not more interest.
Maybe his age goes against it.
How old is he now?
He's 28. So there's no resale value there, is there? So that maybe that's why.
Forest kind of did that before, though. Remember they broke the bank for Morgan Gibbs-White? It was like a really highly rated young
50 million
talent.
quid, wasn't it?
Yeah, and people were like, fucking hell. And they obviously went, and it's worked out amazingly. So they've obviously got a little bit of a track record of trying to do that. Should be a great game.
Should be a great game. Gentlemen, speaking of transfers, did you see that it was revealed this week that Kevin Keegan turned down the chance to sign Zinedine Zidane while Newcastle manager in January 1996? Now, there's a lot of these kind of stories that this manager could have signed it, and that's just inevitable with football and how it operates. But because it's Keegan and Newcastle, it's quite funny.
Well, yeah. There's a famous story of Blackburn doing the same, isn't there? So that's obscured Keggy's kind of failure in this as well.
That would have been when he left Bordeaux, right? So he hasn't actually done the big things in his career that we think about at that point. And I'm not suggesting he would have done them at Newcastle, by the way. But it's not
Is he better than Chris Holland? To be fair, Chris Holland was quite good, but he lost an eye to a pneumonia spill.
Did
in
he
a nightclub.
really?
Yeah. He was
nightclub?
He was going to be the next Gaza, and somebody threw ammonia in his eye, and he lost sight in one of his eyes.
That's awful.
All right, is he better than Jim Crawford or Paul Bracewell?
Yeah.
Well, worth asking the question.
When Newcastle didn't pounce, when Blackburn didn't pounce, Juventus did. Okay, so there was clearly a bit of chat about this. But former player and now agent Barry Silkman said in his book, I begged Kevin to sign him, but in the end he told me his chief scout thought he wasn't good enough, and years later Kevin told me he should have listened to me instead of his scout.
I love getting stuck into Keggy as much as the next man. You know that. But can I just add that Newcastle at that point were challenging for the Premier League title, right?
Yeah.
And Zidane hadn't. This is pre-Juventus Zidane.
Well, he went in '96. So it was
That's what I'm saying. So it's a year he would have moved on from Bordeaux.
Yeah, France international.
Yeah, but
I mean, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not quite
French
the outrageous thing.
French impacts weren't the most successsul apart from Cantona and Schindler, obviously.
It's not like Zidane's walked into Newcastle training in like 2000
Yeah.
and gone,
holding the World Cup.
Do you mind if I have a game?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And Keegan said, no, get out of my sight, you're nobody.
His agents played him the video of the volley at Hampden.
Yeah.
Nah, not us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
for me,
agree.
thanks.
I think we were
Route One.
Where would Lee Clark play?
Yeah, we were duty bound to say that story because a few people have thrown it our way. So
Yeah.
there you are.
Yeah.
We've got a bit of fun.
You can have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have some more fun, Peter.
Dean Smith also says you're an encyclopedia of football.
A what?
An encyclopedia of football.
I don't know what that means.
Stop chatting
I love
during the
that.
Jack's
I love-
Encyclopedia.
I love this
music.
biro. It looks like a better writer than you.
You got your my boys got their biros. Right. Well, last week on the show on Jack's Encyclopedia, Vish beat Marcus and Andy 2-0 to hold on to his belt. Where's Vish now? I mean, he can't be on every Friday show, I suppose, can he? It's only fair.
He's defended it.
He's defended it
Andy was a
successfully.
fucking disgrace, that, by the way. I felt sorry for you.
Yeah.
It was absolutely outrageous.
It's really tarnishing his record. He's Pep Guardiola, isn't it?
Yeah,
in my
he is.
opinion.
Because I think, as
He
I
was
said,
untested in the Premier League, and look what's happened.
I feel confident against Andy, Marcus,
Here we go.
and sometimes Jim, but I don't
Ooh.
feel confident against Vish.
Come on. What about me?
It's
What
not-
about the
you're-
dad? Right.
You're
What?
not. It's like me playing you is like when M Bison destroys Chun Li's village.
It's just like Keegan and Zidane.
Yeah.
Ignored. I'll go on to bigger and better things. Still give categories. If you go too slow, you'll hear Gary Neville. You'll hear a bit of that, and I'll give you 7 seconds to answer.
So what's at stake here today?
Prize.
Respect,
Pride.
love,
Pride.
little. I'll give you a quid.
Okay. No, I'll take that. Yeah, okay.
I think I got a quid in my bag.
Yeah. It's £1 for the winner, 50p for second place.
No,
and
no.
10 Bitcoin for third place.
Carabao Cup-esque.
All right, round number one. We're going to kick things off with Jim. The 19 most expensive players signed by David Moyes in his career.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Players signed while David Moyes was the manager of any particular club. It's a tough one to
Can I
start
go
off.
with Lucas Paquetá?
Got to be in there. He was loads of money.
Yeah.
Surely, Marouane Fellaini.
I had him.
Yep.
Ah, come on.
It's difficult. this.
I
difficult.
I think that Jared Bowen will be in there.
Ooh.
He is in there.
Really
Correct.
good
Well
one.
done, Luke.
Let's hear that button.
Morgan Schneiderlin?
Oh, surely.
Oh, no.
I thought you were on
Didn't-
I
there.
can't remember the
did not do
fee.
that.
I
He
no,
did not do
no
that.
memory of the fee whatsoever.
Marcus? Jim's out. Give us something.
This is so frustrating.
It's a tough one. It's a good question.
Good start.
I think I've got a couple. If that helps you.
It doesn't. I'm really not confident. It's Romelu Lukaku. Not confident with that.
Shame.
So I went last, so I've got to get
Yes,
one.
you got to get one.
Oh,
Let's hit the button.
I'm torn. I'm torn between a man whose first name I literally can't remember and an absolute flyer.
All right. Let's have the flyer.
All right.
Dream big.
Yakubu Agbenny. Yakubu.
Oh, good shout.
Yay! Well done,
My
great
worry of
work.
that is it was ages ago and the fee
Yeah.
might not have been that high.
You could have had Illaramendi, you could have had
Scamacca was the other one I had.
You could have Scamacca, yeah, Gianluca Scamacca.
Gianluca.
Gianluca. Let me go down the list. Edson Alvarez, Emerson, Scamacca, as you said. James Ward-Prowse he signed. Here's one for you. One matter.
Oh,
Isn't it?
yeah.
Konstantinos Mavropanos, Kurt Zuma, Maxwell Cornet, we got Mohamed Kudus in there, Naya Fagued, Nicholas Vlasic, and Ben Rama and Suchek as well.
Yeah, clearly West Ham was the one. Whereas I was
It's
thinking,
just inflation, isn't it?
but I looked at Man United and I was like,
Why didn't you go for
Good
Kudus
question.
then?
I just chose Schneiderlin instead
Yeah, fair
in the moment.
Well done, Lucky. All right, on to the next one. We're going to kick things off with you, Marcus Speller.
Okay.
Every current Championship manager.
What? Oh, manager in the Championship?
Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking of the game for some reason.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Scott Parker.
Who would have thought he'd have gone for him? Okay.
Disgusting.
I'll just give myself time to write those down.
Oh, I like it.
You can press the button if you want. John Massinio.
Well played.
Frank Lampard.
You're still in there.
Tell you what, if I'd have gone first this one, I'd have gone Parker to ruin him.
I can't think of his. That's very poor
It's
of me.
the anger I can't stand.
Do you know
Don't
what?
say it, 'cause
No,
you
I'm not
might
going to
say-
say it.
yeah.
I'm not going to say it because it's one of those ones where I can't get his name out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And anyway, bollocks.
Lucky, who have you got?
I'll go for
His head's gone.
Daniel Farker.
He's absolutely beside himself.
Yeah, why didn't I go for
Neil
that?
Parker. Is Nathan Jones in there?
Oh.
No.
below that?
It's League One.
He's at Charlton.
That
League One.
was a shame.
So you could have had
That
Liam
was a
Manning,
shame.
Reggie Lebris,
Yeah.
Gary Rowett.
So
Yeah.
I mean, Luke's one.
Could have had
again.
them all. Well done. Hang on, let me get the button. There we go.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I've been in a fight there, really.
They were. The first one was very tough. That round. The second.
Tell me the Sheffield
start.
United manager's name, please.
Wilder.
Thank you.
Chris Wilder things. Yeah, you could have had Alex Neil, Chris Wilder, Danny Roll, Gary Rowett at Oxford, Thorpe at Norwich, John Eustace at Blackburn, Liam Manning, Luke Williams, Mark Robbins at Stoke, Cifuentes at QPR, Matt Bloomfield, Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough, Muslic at Plymouth,
Muslic, yeah.
Omar Hariza at Cardiff, Heckingbottom at Preston, Paul Warne Derby, Reggie Lebris at Sunderland, Ruben Selles at Hull, Tom Cleverley at Watford, and finally for now, your friend and mine, he's back. It's Tony Mowbray at West Brom.
I like the way you said John Eustace. There's a bit of Absolute Radio in there.
John Eustace.
I can only apologise to everybody because obviously at least half of them I knew, but for some reason I couldn't get Chris Wilder's name out of my
It
mouth.
happens. It happens.
It's piss poor.
Yep.
Apologies all, but good news. It's Friday.
Good news is, Vish, I'm coming for you.